Hey guys, so in this video I'm going to show you how I completely automated my email inbox with an AI agent set up in Relevance AI, and I'll show you how you can do the same. So this AI agent categorizes emails, can respond to any email in your tone of voice, it can answer any question, it can even send calendar invites and book meetings all on autopilot. So the template will be available for free in the description below. You can clone it. If you don't know Relevance AI yet, it's a no-code AI agent builder. I will show you how you can customize this to your specific inbox. But if you're very new to Relevance AI, I highly recommend you check out my full course on Relevance AI in my YouTube channel. So before showing you this agent in action, I do want to give you a little bit of context on my inbox. So I specifically created this agent for my company inbox. Now, why did I do that? Because I'm actually running an automated BDR system. So I'm sending 18,000 outbound personalized emails a month. I'm going to make another video on that. But as you can imagine, I get a lot of responses back from that. A lot of people that say either unsubscribe, not interested. Some people have questions about the services I'm offering. Some people want to book meetings. And also I'm running a lot of warm-up emails. So warm-up emails are basically, if you don't know what it is, like fake emails that are being sent. So your reply rates are sort of high, so Google doesn't mark your inbox as spam, which is common to do when you're sending out a lot of outbound emails. So just a little bit of context for you to understand. If you are having a different type of inbox, you'll have to customize this to you. But I can show you later how you do that. But knowing this, I'll show you how the agent works. So here we are in my agent dashboard. So here we have the email responder agent, right? And here we have all the incoming emails, right? So you can see my agent labeled each email with what kind of email it is and what it has done. So in this case, this was flagged as a warm-up email, so it didn't have to do anything. I instructed it with a warm-up email, you don't have to do anything, right? Then we have, here's an email answered. And you can see in the background, it uses different tools. So maybe I can show you a quick example, and then through that example, I can explain you how this is set up. So let's say we send an email back after one of our outbound emails, and we say, this sounds interesting, can we set up a meeting? Just to show you the use case of that this AI agent can actually book meetings for us. So let's just pretend that this is a response, and we're going to make it a little bit difficult for our agent. So we're going to have a different time zone, so it has to change the time zone, and we're also going to add in a question. So let's say that sounds interesting. How long would it take to implement something like this? Are you available for a meeting next Tuesday at, let's say, 9 a.m. I'm currently in Brazil. The company account is on Germany time, so we will have to convert it. So we do Brazil time. Thanks. All right. So we sent that. And now we go back to the agent. Usually this takes 2-3 minutes because I think they run the webhook only every 2-3 minutes. So let's wait and see the task coming in. All right, now it came in. It took a little bit. You can see we got the email in here. And you can see this is the way it works. I'm going to show you these tools later, but you can see in the background, he's already performed 4 steps. So he checked first if this is a warm-up email. Then he basically categorized it as not a warm-up email, so continue, right? So in the second step, in the second tool, it checks if the email actually needs a response or not. So it identifies it does need a response. Then he used the email categorizer, where we put a specific category on it, which I will explain later, which is meeting proposed. And now it's running another tool, which is checking for our calendar availability. And if we are available, we'll book a meeting and send an email back with the confirmation. So let's see what's going to happen. So in this tool, it will also have to actually convert time zones and check. That's actually a tricky part of this agent. The most tricky part, I would say, is that part. So let's see. email answered. So he's answered the email. So let's see what happens. And good, we got an invitation. You can see I'm now in Sao Paulo in Brazil at 9, so it did the right time, the time zone conversion. And it also sent an email back answering the question. Hi Ben, the implementation timeline for our AI BDR agent varies depending on the company, but on average it takes between 2 to 8 weeks. We also provide comprehensive training and ongoing support to ensure a smooth transition. I've just sent you a meeting invite for next Tuesday. Looking forward to discussing this further with you. So responded it perfect. And I'm going to show you now how this is actually set up. So the way this agent works is basically we have sort of 3 different categorization tools, which is check for warm-up email tool, the check if email needs response tool, and the email categorizer tool. So we can go through them step by step. I can show you how they're set up, and through that process you'll get a better understanding of also how to customize this for your specific use case, because I can imagine you might not have warm-up emails, so this one might not even be necessary, and you might have different categories or types of emails you get in. So all the tools that this agent has are those 3 categorization tools, and then we basically, depending on the category, we run the answer email tool, which basically all it does is just answering the email using a knowledge base of my company and a past email knowledge base for me, where it basically sort of can mimic the tone of voice of my past emails. Then we have another one, which is the one that ran right now, which is the check calendar availability. When the email is categorized as someone proposing a meeting at a specific date or time, then it will use that tool to check calendar availability and actually book the meeting if we are available. And then the last one is delegate to me. So this is basically any email that does not fall in those previous categories. Like, for example, sometimes I get some partner requests or someone who wants to collaborate or something like this. In this case, I want to actually check it myself and see. So in this case, I use the tool. It should use the tool delegate to me. And in that case, it will tag it here to delegate to me, and also will send me an email to my personal email inbox saying this email needs your attention. So that's how it works. Now we go through it step by step. So you can see the first instruction of this agent is to always use the check for warm-up email tool. Why? Because I get lots of warm-up emails and we don't want to run all of these other tools if it's a warm-up email. So I can show you how this is set up. If we go here, if you're not familiar with tool building inside of Relevance AI yet, they're basically sort of simple executions with steps, user inputs, and knowledge. These are the 3 important things to know in tools. So we can give it a knowledge base. In this case, we don't need it. We have the user inputs. So what variables will we need in the steps next? So in this case, we have the subject line, the email content, and email domain of sender, because we need this information in this prompt. So all we've done here is set up an LLM step. You can check this out in detail, also the prompt in the free template in the description. But basically what this prompt does, it says you are a professional email analyzer and categorization specialist. Your job is going to be to analyze and identify if the target email below is a warm-up email or not. So that's basically what I prompted to do. I give it lots of examples of warm-up emails here. Now, they're very easily identifiable, these warm-up emails, because they always have these codes here in the subject line and in the email. So all I instructed is like, if it has like a 7-character long alphanumeric code, then identify it as warm-up email. Right? And if it doesn't, just output continue. Right? And then if it runs that, right, so let's see, we can run it quickly with this example. It outputs continue because it's not a warm-up email. So our agent will receive this message, continue. So it knows, okay, this was not a warm-up email. We should continue with the next tool, the next step. I'll go over the agent setup and agent prompting later. But so if we go back, we go to the second tool, which is always the next tool if it was not a warm-up email. It's check if email needs response. So in this tool, we're going to look for, is this maybe a company like notification or company no reply email or a newsletter or anything in that sort of promotional or notificational type of email, we're going to check if it's one of those. And if it's one of those, it will identify it, report that back to the agent, and say basically, okay, this is just a company email. We don't need a response, right? So again, we have the same user inputs here, subject line, email content, and email domain. Again, also, if you don't know, we are storing these in variables, right? This is the key in tools, that we can work with variables. So these variables then we use in the prompt. So when we say, hey, please categorize this email, of course it's going to be a different email every time. So that's where these variables come into play, because here we can input these variables. So we ask it to categorize the target email, and then we put these variables here with the brackets. But again, if you need a full tutorial on Relevance AI, check out my full tutorial on my YouTube channel. Anyway, this tool will categorize if it's a company email or a newsletter, etc. So we can run it. And in this case, it says needs response, because what I said is basically if it's not all of these sort of newsletter, company email, etc., then output needs response. So again, the agent now will receive back from this tool that it needs a response, and it will start running the next tool. And the next tool is our email categorizer. Now, the email categorizer is very similar again too, but in this case, we're gonna check what kind of email this is. So we know it sort of needs a response, but we still have to sort of categorize it to choose which next tool is best to use. So, for example, if they've proposed a specific date or time to meet up, then we have to run the tool where we actually can check our calendar availability, etc. But if it's just a question and they're not very interested in meeting up yet, they're just having a question about the service or anything else, then we have to categorize it differently to run a different tool. So again, the user inputs are the same. Email content, subject line. And here we run a prompt. You're a professional email analyzer and categorization specialist. Your job is going to be to analyze and categorize the target email below. So in this case, I instructed it to categorize it in one of the following categories. Additional info email. So that would be an email where someone asks for extra information. Only that. So he's not really, trying to set up a meeting yet. Then we have meeting proposed email, which is the one that we just got in, where someone is proposing to meet up with a specific date and time. A meeting interest email is someone saying, I want to meet up, but he hasn't proposed a specific time or date. And meeting link sent email. So that is where someone sent a meeting link, because of course our AI system cannot enter these meeting links and book meetings for us just yet. So in that case, it will have to delegate it to me. And in any other case, it will identify there's an other email, and with the other email, we will use the delegate to me tool. So with the additional info email and a meeting interest email, we just use the answer email tool to just answer the email based on our knowledge base and our sort of past email to mimic my style. If it categorizes it as meeting proposed email, it will run the tool that checks for my calendar availability and books a meeting. And if it's meeting link sent email or other email, we will delegate it to me. That's basically how the system works. So again, if we run this one, it says meeting proposed email, of course, and that reports that back to the agent. And now the agent knows, because we've instructed this in the agent prompt, which I'll show later. If it's outputs meeting proposed email as the category, then you will run this tool. Check calendar, book meeting, and send the email. So this is the most complicated tool, but I'm going to show you. So in this case, we've used a lot more, right? The first three tools were very simple. It was just one prompt, basically. But in this case, we're using, first of all, two knowledge bases. So first, I've set up a knowledge base for my company. So basically, this knowledge base includes all sort of general information about the service I'm selling to these clients, right? So what is an AI BDR? What cost savings is the AI BDR? So just general information on this, so it knows it can answer these types of questions, right? And then the second one, knowledge base here, is my past email replies. Now, why did I use this? This I basically use so it can understand my tone of voice and the way I speak. And then later, we can basically use these knowledge bases just like we use these user input variables inside of our prompts to say, hey, check these knowledge bases for information, to respond to these questions, and to mimic my style and tone of voice. So in this case, our user inputs are a lot more. So we have the email content, of course, but we also have the thread ID, because we have to respond back into the same thread. So we have to send back the email inside of the same email thread. We have the message ID. We have the sender email domain, because of course we'll need that to send the email. We have the date and time of the email received. Why do we have that? Because, of course, if for example, in this email, I said, can we meet up next Tuesday, 3 p.m.? So the AI has to know what date it is today, or what date the email came in, to know when next Tuesday is. Then we have name of sender, and here we have draft. So when you're testing this out, it's good to sort of check mark this at the beginning, leave it on, just so when you're testing it, it doesn't start to send out badly written emails or meeting links to random people. So yes, this is the setup. By the way, if you don't know this yet, these fields are pretty important to describe well because the agent in the end will fill out this information, right? From the previous information it got from the trigger, in this case the Gmail, this will fill it out. So you have to describe to the agent, well, here in the subtitle, what it has to do there, right? Or what user input it is. So in this case, it's a long sequence of steps. I'm not going to go through all. You can check it out in the template again, but I'm just going to give you a brief overview. So basically what we're doing here in this first step is identifying your world-class email analyzer with a particular knack for identifying the meeting times and time zone that was proposed in the email, right? The email you will analyze is a response, blah, blah, blah. So basically we'll identify the times or time and dates that this person proposed in the email, and also the time zone. And then it will output that information in a specific format, an ISO formatted string, what they call it, which is the string we would need for checking our Google Calendar availability, and also for booking a meeting. It's a little bit complicated, this, but you can check it out in detail. I've even ran some code here to basically then automatically transform this time zone, because of course this is a different time zone than our inbox or than our calendar, to automatically transform this Python code, basically transforms this time zone into our time zone. All right, so you can see it changed it here from -03 to +02. So don't worry if you don't know how to code, you don't have to touch this really, it just changes the time zone. Well, you would have to change it, of course, if you have a different time zone. Let me check. So yes, you can actually change it quite easily here. You would fill in your own time zone, and it will put it in yours. So you'll have to find online what sort of the Python code for your time zone is, or the name, and then it would work for you. So all you'd have to do is to fill that in here, in this green spot. So anyway, in the next step, we're gonna do another LLM step where we are, it's been a while I've been working with this. Okay, so here in this case, we're putting out a JSON with the start date and the end date. It has to check for my calendar availability. So a little bit complicated, but let's take this example, right? So I proposed a meeting at 9 a.m. in Sao Paulo. So in Europe, it's 5 hours later. So it's 2 p.m., like he said here, 2 p.m. in Germany. So he'll have to check for my calendar availability from 2 to 3 p.m. Right, so that's basically it, what it does here. And then we output that in a JSON. We convert the string to JSON to get two different variables. Now, why do we need these two variables? Because the check Google Calendar availability is set up like this: start date variable and end date. So we need both. So we need two different variables. We can't give it as one. So yes, a little bit complicated, but you don't have to touch this too much, I think. So here it's checking for our calendar availability. And you can show it checks for the whole day. Basically, okay, yes, he's available. Now, last step here is we're gonna compare the two. So the first one we got back, what is the availability of the user, which was this one. Right, this is what he proposed. And we're gonna check that with our availability, which we got back here. This is all our available times that day. And then we're gonna instruct this LLM to say, okay, are these times matching? And if they're matching, then we can start booking a meeting, because if they're not matching and we're actually not available, we cannot book a meeting, and we'll have to send an email back saying we're sorry, we're not available at that time. So in this case, it outputs available, yes. The start time would be this time in Berlin time, not Europe time, and the end time would be this. Again, we convert the string to JSON to have this in 3 different variables. And then we can finally create the Google Calendar event. So here we select the Google account, the event title, then the start date and time, and the end date and time. And that's it. And then in the last one, which is interesting still, is we're gonna confirm the meeting, right? So we actually have 2. We're gonna confirm the meeting. So the meeting was booked for the following date, so it knows. And then here we have the knowledge base, right? So if they had any questions, it will use this knowledge base to answer. And here it also has the past emails, so it can mimic my tone of voice. So it will write the email, as you can see here, right? Hi Ben, the implementation pipeline, blah, blah, blah. I've just sent you over a meeting invite for Tuesday, right? And lastly, we use the Gmail API to send our email, right? So we add in the variable of the email domain where it has to send it, and the email body. Now, if you want to send this to the same thread, like let's say, because most of these are actually responses to emails, or all of them are responses to email. So you want to reply back in the same thread. That's why we had the thread ID as a user input there too. So we go here to advanced settings, and there we put in the variable thread ID and message ID. So we make sure that it responds in the same thread. Little bit complicated, this one. Check it out with a little bit more time yourself. You will have access to it in the free template. But this is how it works. And then, because this is the other case, if we were not available, we have another prompt that is basically saying, write an email back saying, sorry, I'm not available at that time. Could you please book a meeting in my Calendly link, right? And that's where this comes in. So here we actually have a variable, right? So this variable basically says, if we were available, or if we were not available, you will run this. If we were available, don't run this. Again, if you want to know more about, learn more about variables and conditions like this, then check out my full tutorial on my YouTube channel. Anyway, we go back, and lastly, I'm going to show you the last 2 tools, which are the answer email, which is a lot simpler because we don't have to check. We don't have to check for our calendar availability, etc. So let's see. I can check it here. So we have our answer email. This one's a lot more straightforward. So go to build. Again, we have the 2 knowledge bases, the same ones as before. We have the same user inputs as the other one. And then we have basically just one LLM step where we ask it to reply to the email using the knowledge bases and my past email examples. And also I instruct it to always include my Calendly link at the end. And we use the Google Gmail API to send the email back. So that's the answer email tool. And then last one, we have Delegate to Me. So in this case, Delegate to Me will be, if it's not categorized in any of those other categories, it will be delegated to me. So the way this is set up is I don't even really need these inputs, but all it does is it sends an email to my personal email, saying needs attention. And then I also add in the email content so I can read it inside of my own personal email. Okay, this is what it's about. Do I actually need to go in there and respond it, or maybe not? So that's how the tools are set up. Now I'll show you the agent prompting. So if we go back here, the agent prompting is set up here in configure agent. So there's a few important things to know. Again, if you don't know anything about agents yet, check out my tutorial first. But I'll go over it quickly. So for the agent profile, this is just a name for you, and the agent description, not very important. Only important if you're going to work with multi-agent systems, because then other agents will understand what this agent does through the agent description. Now for the integration, they have a native integration with Gmail, so this is going to be easy to set up. I can do it again for you so you can see, reconnect. So all you have to do is connect it to your email. That's it. And then they'll ask, you can actually set up some filters from Gmail, but in this case I didn't do it. And then you could choose which kind of email. So in this case I chose the, okay, so you can choose the type of email. So in this case, just inbox, all the inbox. This one I actually have triggered, which is outreach reply only. Advanced options. Yeah, you can filter out specific emails, but we are already sort of doing that through our agent. So that's it for triggering your agent. This is very simple. And then we go to the agent prompt. Now the agent prompt is going to be very important. And the agent prompt is really focused on this process, right? There's sort of this flow we're trying to give it. So in this case, what I do is I start with role and task. You're an export personal inbox manager. You will trigger it every time I get a new email in my inbox. Your task is to analyze the email, categorize, and decide what action needs to be taken. Right. So in the context, I give it a little bit of information on it and the tools it has available to him. And this is always the most important sort of step in my experience in these agent prompts, which is the tools and SOP section, where we basically describe in detail all the tools it has access to and what these tools do and what these tools output. And then sort of based on these outputs, we instruct it what to do. Right, so that's the key thing here. You can read it again in detail in the template, but that's what I'm doing here. I'm just describing what these tools do, right? Tool 1, check for warm-up email. This is the first tool you will always have to run. This tool identifies if the email is a warm-up email or not. Right. If the tool returns continue, we'll continue with tool 2. If it's a warm-up email, you don't have to do anything else. Right, so I just go through the tools. Also, by the way, markdown formatting, which I use, which is this. There's a study being done that it actually helps with understanding of the prompt. So I tend to use it. And then lastly, I have some specific notes here at the end, which I usually, when my agent's making errors, usually I add some notes here to try and fix it. So in this case, if there are any CCs present in the email, give the tools all the CCs that were in the original incoming email. So it will send the reply back to all the original people in the CCs. Now, let's go into the flow builder now. So the flow builder, there we basically double down on that SOP, right? So this looks complicated, but it's not that complicated actually. It's just sort of, we double down on that flow, right? So we can basically we have two options here. We can do instruction or conditional. So the first step from a starting point, which is a new email comes in, we have a first instruction, which is to always run tool check for warm-up email, right? So this is the whole process we've basically been through, right? And you can actually, with a dash, get these tools. So you can actually choose the tool so it knows exactly what you want to do. So for example, here, I'll zoom in a bit. Always run tool check for warm-up email and determine if further action should be taken. And then I put in a condition. If tool return warm-up email, instruction, no further action should be taken. If tool return continue, then run check if email needs response tool, right? Again, condition. If tool returned uninterested, blah, 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 then we stop the flow. If the tool returns needs response, then run the email categorizer tool. And again, we have a condition set up for, depending on the category, which tool it has to run. So if email is categorized as additional info or meeting interest email, then use answer email tool. If email is categorized as meeting proposed email, then we run the check calendar book meeting tool. And if email is categorized as meeting link sent email or other email, then use delegate to me. So it's basically just doubling down on that flow, which is really the most important thing for these agents. That's why I really like this feature, because of course we're doing it in our agent prompt, but we're doubling down on it through this. Then lastly, here I have abilities, where here it's labeling these tasks. So as you can see before here, I have these labels, right? What is as done? So email answered, warm up email. So that's this part. So here we can basically instruct it when to label it what. So here we put the label name, warm up email. When the check for warm up email to return warm up email, it has to label it with this label. When the check if email needs response tool returns other email, then we label it as needs response. If the email is answered, then it will label it with email answered, and if it delegated it to me, it will label it as delegated. Pretty straightforward. Then we have the tool sections. So here we can add or delete our tools. So let's say if you don't need the warm-up email tool, you can delete it here. And also very recommendable in the beginning, when you start testing your agent, you can put these tools on approval required. Right, so if we put approval required, it will not perform it automatically. It will wait for your approval, which is good if you're starting to test these systems. So the first 10, 20, you'll have to do like that. And then when you see everything's running smoothly, then you can start doing the auto run. Sub agents we won't need, and advanced and configure template are also not necessary for this specific agent. So that's really it for the agent setup. Now really, if you want to customize this to your use case, what you really have to, you sort of have to reverse engineer your own inbox. So what kind of emails do you get? What kind of emails can you automate? And what categories would you put on those? Then you get a few examples, you put them in those prompts, you put a category on it, and then you have to think, okay, for each type of email, what do we have to do? What is the process? So in my case, it's like check for the calendar availability if they propose a meeting, etc. But it could be you have a very different use case. So you first have to sort of figure out what your categories are, what type of emails, and what are the actions need to be taken for each email to be answered. Now, for creating the knowledge base of your past emails, the easiest way I found to do that is by using a tool called Cloud HQ. So it's a plugin which you can do for free. You can do, I think, up to 50 or 100, which is, I think, more than enough for free. And then you can export it to sheets. And basically that spreadsheet you can then upload into Relevance AI as a knowledge base. So that's pretty easy. It's called Cloud HQ. And that's it for this video. I know it's might be a little bit complicated, the setup of this. If you have any questions, let me know, or even book a meeting with me down below for free. I'm very happy to help out. I'm learning a lot in the process of teaching you guys too. And thank you so much for watching, if you're still watching, and have a great day. Ciao, ciao.